Okay, let's jump right in. The core claim, the thing that immediately hits you in this book, is how the Justice Department's independence was severely undermined.
Yeah, it's a powerful starting point.
So the big question we're tackling is this. What happens when the top law enforcement agency in the U.S. kind of shifts from guarding the rule of law to becoming, well, the president's political shield?
Exactly. And that's our mission here. We're giving you the most game-changing, essential insights from Carol Leonnig and Aaron C. Davis's book, Injustice: How Politics and Fear Vanquished America's Justice Department.
We want this to be practical wisdom, stuff that might actually transform how you think about, institutional integrity.
Absolutely. Let's start with that first big insight, the transformation itself.
Right. We think of the DOJ as this pillar upholding the law, but the book details how, under the Trump administration, it faced enormous pressure.
Systematic pressure.
The goal seemed to become protecting the president and, at the same time, using the department's power against his political adversaries.
And what's really striking is the detail about the daily battles. That's the phrase they use.
Daily battles. Between who?
Between the career staff, these are attorneys, FBI agents, folks who dedicated their lives to the DOJ, fighting to keep things straight, fighting for integrity.
Yet,
And the political appointees who, the authors argue, were bending justice for partisan reasons. It wasn't just conflict. The book says this aggressive interference really hollowed out the DOJ's credibility.
from the inside. That points to a huge structural danger, doesn't it? When political loyalty starts to matter more than professional duty in a place meant to be above politics.
Precisely. But here's a simple way to think about applying this. It really forces you to consider the vulnerabilities inherent in politically appointed leadership structures anywhere.
Okay, so that's the danger of maybe too much political influence. But then the book pivots, right, to almost the opposite problem.
It does, and it's quite counterintuitive. The second insight asks, can fearing the appearance of bias actually cripple the pursuit of justice?
So, trying too hard to look impartial.
Exactly. After Trump's term, Attorney General Merrick Garland really pushed to restore the DOJ's image of impartiality. He wanted to show they were above the fray.
Which sounds like the right move, on the surface.
You'd think so. But the book describes what happened next as analysis-induced paralysis.
Analysis-induced paralysis. Why paralysis? What did that look like?
Well, this intense caution, this effort to avoid any hint of partisanship, reportedly led to significant delays. Major cases got stalled.
Like which ones?
Things like the investigation into January 6th or the handling of classified documents. The thinking seemed to be, if we move too quickly, it'll look political, like revenge.
Ah, okay. So the caution itself became the problem.
According to some career attorneys cited in the book, yes. They felt that by waiting, by being so careful, the DOJ inadvertently let serious misconduct go unanswered for too long. They tied their own hands in a way.
So trying desperately to rebuild public faith might have actually hampered the core mission. It's a difficult balance.
It really is. And reflecting on these tough institutional moments is what we do here. This is Mindful Moments, our YouTube channel offering AI book analysis, summaries, and critiques, aiming to inspire reflection and rational thought.
Definitely check that out.
Yeah.
Now let's get to the third key insight, which sounds pretty grim. Erosion from within.
Yeah, this one focuses on the human cost. The authors use some really compelling anecdotes. They show how hostility and politicized hiring practices drove good, experienced people out.
So it's not just about policy shifts, it's about the people, the culture inside.
Right. Morale reportedly plummeted among career DOJ and FBI staff. People who'd spent their whole careers there were dismissed or sidelined.
And internal pushback against political directives.
Systematically crushed, according to the book.
Right.
And new hires, they were sometimes vetted more for partisan loyalty than, say, their legal expertise.
That sounds like it fundamentally changes the institution.
The authors argue it risks turning the justice system from a shield for the public into a tool for those in power.
Wow. Is there a specific example that stands out?
There's one really powerful quote. It captures the dilemma around presidential accountability. A DOJ official is quoted reflecting, quite candidly,
What did they say?
"If it was anybody else, we'd arrest him tomorrow." That quote just hangs there. It highlights the immense pressure and the potential conflict at the heart of the institution.
That's sobering. And it shows the real-world impact of these internal dynamics. Now, if you want the full framework on protecting institutions from this kind of erosion, watch the full analysis.
Before we wrap up this overview, let's quickly guide you on how to explore this further on our channel.
Good idea. You can start with these 5-minute essential insights, what you're listening to now, then dive deeper with the in-depth analysis.
After that, check out the summary for concise overview. And finally, the comprehensive critique for a balanced look at the book's arguments.
So the final takeaway from Leonnig and Davis, what's the lasting impact?
It's a stark warning. They suggest the combined effect of the politicization, followed by that overcautious paralysis, might have cost the DOJ public trust for potentially a whole generation. That political independence got lost in this cycle.
Which leaves us, and you, with a really critical question for today. How can democracy function? How can it survive if the very system of justice seems to bend with each change in political power?
A question worth pondering.
Discover genre-based book podcasts at Mindful Moments. Subscribe and nourish your mind on the go.